So let's wargame this out. So for the purposes of this situation, we're going to say that you are in your bedroom at home, most likely with your significant other. And at some point in the early morning hours, you're hearing noise, you're hearing some type of stimulus that's telling you that something is going on in your house that it shouldn't be. So at this point, we retrieve our home defense firearm, whatever the case may be. In this case, we'll just say that, it's basic, it's a Glock 19 with a red dot and a light. Okay, simple enough. And at this point, perhaps it's in our home defense plan that we're going to secure ourselves in our room. We're going to watch that door. We're going to call 911. Maybe for some people, they immediately go to clear. But for purposes of this, we'll say that regardless of what your plan is, at this point, you hear stimulus coming from down the hallway. You hear some type of noise from the room of another family member. Perhaps it's screaming, perhaps it's some type of commotion. Whatever the case may be, at this point, we now have concerns about the safety of that family member. So we'll say at this point that this, our defender here decides to go and investigate that. At this point, they see something in the doorway, not 100% sure what that is. I can't really make out clear details. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're still groggy. Kick on the white light. At this point, we see a lot more clearly. We see two things. We see, number one, typical bad guy, dressed all in black, ski mask, armed with a crowbar. Very clearly somebody that doesn't belong in our house, shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And they are currently menacing our second figure here in green, which is going to be our good guy family member. So at this point, this person is now getting lit up by a white light. They're going to react to that stimulus. At this point, they turn around and they face us. And we can very clearly see, again, masked, armed, and is now turning around and looking at us. And at this point, we'll say maybe they don't realize that we're armed, or maybe they don't care, but they're going to charge at us. Okay, so at this point, we now have somebody who is broken into our house where they should not be, is armed with a deadly weapon. So at this point, our home defender is going to go through, make the mental determination that, yes, this is a threat. I need to fire defensive shots now in order to end this encounter. So at this point, lines up the sights, bill drill, 6 rounds, center mass, fast as possible. Threat crumples just before they get to us. Function check. Gun's good. Check ourselves. We're still okay. We're not fucked up. We're still in the fight. And the person that we just engaged, completely non-responsive. So they just basically light switch went out. Whatever the case may be. So what did we miss? Remember rule number 4 of firearm safety. Be aware of your target and what's beyond it. So, in this case, that brother, sister, daughter, cousin, whatever, our good guy family member. As soon as all this starts going down, what are they doing? They're running to cover. And we can still see them in every image that I've put up here. And they're trying to get to safety. So we'll do this overlay. And doing so, we'll see that our good guy is covering up about 50% of the body of our bad guy. At this point here, even with good shot placement, a good A-zone hit, good series of A-zone hits that are definitely going to end the threat, there is a possibility that some of those shots might potentially over-penetrate, depending on the round chosen, and depending on if it works, and potentially injure, or in the case of this scenario, we'll say actually ends up taking out this good guy. And, for the sake of closing this scenario, we'll say maybe this goes to the courts, maybe this doesn't. Regardless, it ends up just being ruled as a tragic accident, and our defender doesn't catch a murder charge here. They still have to live with that. Remember that we're all 100% responsible, legally and morally, for every shot that we fire. So in this case, this defender is now going to have to potentially live with the guilt of the fact that they fired the shots that took out somebody that they care about, and that's going to sit with them forever. So how do we avoid this? Toughie. Because there's a lot going on here very quickly. There's a lot of stimulus that we need to process. And we also need to be able to be capable of performing to the level needed in order to deal with this properly. Which is why we should be training with no-shoots in self-defense scenarios, because this is something that can happen. There might potentially be a good guy that is either classically being held as a hostage, in which case you got to do the end of the Die Hard headshot where we take out the bad guy, or in the case of our scenario that we're presenting here, the good guy is behind the bad guy, trying to get to safety. Either way, If we overlay these, it's the same amount of risk of hitting a good guy. So we need to be training to A, recognize when we need to slow down and make more accurate and judicious shots, and B, be able to train to make that happen. And as a compounding factor on that, we also need to take into consideration distance and movement here. Unfortunately, most of us can't train with moving targets. Hopefully people start to innovate and come up with some good ideas to be able to do so here in the near future. I've already seen a couple that are very promising as far as, RC drones and stuff like that. I think that's fantastic. I want to see that technology develop even more. But yes, in the case of this, we have a combination of three things that makes for a very difficult target. We have a moving target. We have the possibility of hitting a no-shoot or a good guy, which is going to require us to slow down and make our hits a little bit more judiciously. And the third thing here is we also need to take into effect distance. So there's the old adage out there, 3 shots, 3 seconds, 3 yards, or sometimes 3 feet. That might not always be true. So just for shits and giggles, I took a measurement on, the main hallway that goes from my bedroom and my home, and it's almost 10 yards long. So that's a 30-foot shot. Is that a difficult shot on a center mass target? No. Is that a difficult shot on a headshot? Starting to get there, but still not really. Is that a difficult shot on a moving target coming at us with a massive adrenaline dump in low light conditions? Yeah. Now we're starting to just stack all sorts of things that are going to make this a very, not difficult, but stressful shot to make. So our training should reflect that. We should be training on reduced probability targets. We should be training at distances greater than 3 yards. We should be training in low light, because this is all things we could potentially run into just as home defenders, just as people who are not going out, not causing trouble, but trouble potentially comes to us. Anyway, I just wanted to riff on that for a while. Everybody be safe, and remember that your destiny is in your hands and your hands alone. You are the captain of your own ship, and the course of your life is going to be determined by A, your motivation, and B, the preparation that you take to undertake the goals that you have. That's all. Be safe. Dismissed.